What's up, guys? It's Keefe. In today's video, we are going over the 4 levels of men. Now, before we get into that, I made this channel to build better men. So if you're a guy who's out there who's looking to improve his life in any way, hit the subscribe button and bell icon. I put out new videos every single day to make sure you can do exactly that. So let's get into the video right here. As you can see, we've got the whiteboard now, so you know shit is getting serious, okay? But I've broken this down into 4 levels, and before we get started, this is not to just say that a level 4 kind of guy has more inherent value than you if you're a level 1 guy. This is strictly like a transitionary process of your life, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you're going to reach the level 4 stage in your life, because this is truly a place where everybody's happy, where you just feel great, right? And you've accomplished a lot in your life. So the first stage here, call it the wandering stage, okay? And I call it the wandering stage because you've got no purpose, right? And if you have no purpose, you have no aim. And if you have no aim, you're just wandering around, okay? In this stage, you are most likely broke, okay? Because if you don't have a direction for anything, how are you gonna have any money, right? Now, obviously, there are going to be exceptions to these rules, right? Like, maybe you've got rich parents, so you've got money, even though you ain't got shit going on for yourself, right? Also, on this level, usually you're not gonna have any sexual options, right? Why would a girl be interested in a guy who has no purpose, who's broke, and is just pretty much miserable? He's not contributing anything to society. Why would she want that guy? On this level, the guys tend to be depressed, anxious, and resentful. Now, why is that? Well, you're gonna be depressed if you don't really have a purpose for your life, right? Because life's tough. And so if you don't have anything to motivate you to keep moving forward, then obviously it's going to be tough for you, right? Anxiety comes from not knowing what the future holds. And if you haven't chosen a purpose, gotten on a path, and started moving towards that, then obviously you don't know what the future holds. So there's a lot of uncertainty and fear in that. Resentment and just basically a victim mentality and envy. You're going to resent women for not being interested in you in this stage. You're going to resent other men for being successful because you don't feel like you're capable of that success on your own. It's just not a good place to be, right? At this stage, you are also controlled by your impulses and by instant gratification. So people in this stage, right, they cannot help themselves. They got to go binge watch the TV. They got to go take a break in the middle of the day to go jerk off or whatever it is, right? They're smoking weed all the time. They're drinking all the time, whatever it is that holds them back. They're focused on immediate gratification, whereas I've talked about in the past, delayed gratification is the key to getting success, because you got to compound your efforts and be willing to postpone the gratification of it and put in the work now. People in this stage are not willing to do that. Now, you want to get out of this stage as quick as possible, although most of the population finds themselves in this stage, right? The way to get out is to find your purpose, right? And the reason this is so important is because if you find a purpose, your purpose is going to demand of you discipline. So you're going to have to control your impulses and your need for instant gratification, because you can't put in the work if you're constantly taking breaks to go do whatever bad habits you have, or you're constantly trying to get immediate results, right? Because these things take time. At the same time, you're going to reduce your anxiety. Most people who have a purpose aren't going to be anxious all the time. They're not going to be depressed. They're going to be less resentful because they're in a state where they feel confident that they can go achieve something, right? You're also just going to start to change really all of this, okay? And that leads us into the second level, call it slept on, okay? And the reason I call it the slept on level is because most people aren't going to recognize the work, all right? On this level, you've started to make the internal changes. You've started to do the work on yourself, right? You've got a purpose. You've figured out what that is. You're probably building your finances, okay? Generally speaking, you probably won't have a girl in the 21st century. In the 20th century, back when people got married when they were younger, and it was kind of like the woman expected to ride it out with you as you built a life together, that was probably an area where you would have a girl while you were building yourself. In this modern world we live in, where girls have 150 guys in their DMs every day, that just doesn't happen that often. But maybe you have a really ride or die girl. Keep her if you do, because that's pretty clutch. But anyways, on this level, you're slept on because you don't have that public recognition, right? You're doing the inner work, you're doing the disciplines, you're doing the right steps, you're taking the right actions, but these things pay dividends over time, not immediately. I hazard a guess most of you watching this channel are going to either be in the wandering or the slept on stage. So like I said, you're building your purpose. You figured out what that is. Because of that, you're going to be feeling positive emotion, because you're going to be like, all right, I'm moving in the right direction. I'm headed towards what matters to me, and I can see it starting to work, right? You're also going to be facing your fears as well, because you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone to do something bold, right? Discipline, learning, I should have added training as well, but training and learning are kind of the same things. These are the hallmarks of this level, right? You have to discipline these things. You can't be controlled by instant gratification and start getting results and moving in the right direction. Like if you're trying to build your body per se, but you can't stop eating donuts or whatever your impulsive food is, your discipline's lacking, so you're not going to make the progress, right? Moving on with that, I mean, again, you're learning, you're training. This is like kind of like where you have to apprentice in a way. Most people at this level, you're going to feel like it's not working for a while. I felt this a lot. I would make sure I was doing all the things that the successful people told me to do, you know, morning routines, doing the meditations, doing all these different practices, right? And for a long time, it wasn't getting me anywhere. Well, it didn't feel like it was getting me anywhere because I was looking too much outside of myself, that is. But then one day things started to click, right? It's a compounding effect. So if you're feeling like things aren't working and you're like, gee, I was probably better off in the wandering stage where I could just jerk off whenever I wanted to, think again. It takes time, but you will continue working. If you continue and you don't give up and you keep doing the right things, you will enter level 3, which is the recognized stage. So the recognized stage is where your accomplishments become public. And again, this isn't to say you have to be some celebrity. When I say public, I mean basically you get the recognition of people like, okay, you've done something, right? I felt like I reached this stage for a brief moment when I got my real estate license a few years ago. I got that recognition. I'd put in the work for a while. Some people would really doubted me. They didn't understand why I was doing real estate and why I dropped out of college. But I got it done. I got recognized. It felt great. One thing to keep in mind is over your life, you're probably going to transition between slept on and recognized multiple times until you really reach the pinnacle, right? Because, for example, I reached the recognized stage for a moment when I got my license, but then it's back in the slept on stage because now I got to go sell houses, right? At this stage, when you've really reached it for good, right? You're usually going to be abundant because you're just like, if you've really put in that time, right? I don't care if your purpose is even financial. Usually it's going to have something to do with making money. But even if it doesn't, like, you have to have money to pursue really anything in the world. So you're probably going to be abundant. You're reaching heights in your purpose. You have reached a level where people are recognizing you, whether that be a public domain or whether it just be like somebody's like, he's the best damn real estate agent in town, hire him. Something like that. Basically, you're going to have easy sexual options, right? These are the guys, they're pretty rare, and they're the ones who all the girls want to be with. And usually you're going to find yourself at this point, you're starting to look for relationships as well, right? Because, I mean, most guys who are really successful aren't chasing ass all day. That's just a fact, right? The emotional states of this kind of person, the mindset, they're going to be confident, right? Because they put in that work. A lot of times, I think we think confidence is just going to fall out of the sky and like bless us, right? It doesn't happen like that. You got to put in the work. I don't care how many mindset affirmations you do. You still got to have some proof to be confident, or why are you going to be confident, right? Along with that, these guys are also usually leaders because they put in that work. And again, confidence kind of resonates into a leadership state because you want your voice to be heard if you're confident, because you feel like you believe in your truth, right? You're usually going to be positive. Why wouldn't you be? You really accomplished pretty much everything you're trying to accomplish in life. And you're able to completely rid distractions, right? People with great like success in whatever domain they're in, sports, entertainment, being a lawyer, whatever it is, the people that are at the top, they had to rid themselves of all of this. They had to rid themselves of all of that, all the things that were holding them back, and get laser focused. And the thing is, once you reach this place, it's not that hard, right? It's really not. If you love what you're doing, you're absolutely on your purpose and you love it. It's not that hard once you start to get the results to completely focus on it, okay? Now, the one thing to focus on here as compared to level 4 is that the focus is on the personal, right? This is all personal accomplishments, reaching heights in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. It's still a little bit egoic. Perhaps if you're young, it's about getting girls, getting the Lamborghini, whatever it is. But then you transition ultimately into level 4, which is the legacy stage. The legacy stage is when you've accomplished all selfish goals. And I put selfish in quotations because selfish gets a bad rap in our society. But the thing is, you can't give back to others unless you have given to yourself first. You cannot be selfless unless you have the resources to be selfless, right? Like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller were the 2 richest people in American history, some of the richest people to ever live. They spent the whole first half of their lives being ruthless businessmen, owning these massive monopolies that ran everybody else out of business, acquiring all this huge wealth, and then they spent the second halves of their lives giving it all away pretty much. It's like, because they started focusing on legacy because they'd accomplished the selfish goals. They'd gotten all that ego out of the way, right? So on this level, family, things like family, generosity, world impact, and just enjoying your life take priority over the more like, I want like the girls, or I want the money, I want the mansion in Miami, all these kinds of things. These things start to take more precedent. You understand that happiness comes from giving, not receiving, whereas in these other areas, we're focused on how can I get what I want, right? And I think we all understand this intellectually, right? We're always told, like, it's better to give than receive and all these things, right? But we're all watching self-development channels, right? We're watching self-development channels, not other development channels, right? Because we're trying to develop ourselves. We want things, and that's okay, right? Because until you really have accomplished everything you want to accomplish, you just can't truly internalize that idea of like, everything is about giving more to other people rather than getting it for yourself. But on this level, you really start to understand that because you have accomplished what you're here to accomplish, you feel like. These kind of people, they're sought after. They're patriarchal kinds of figures, right? So like a patriarch of a family, perhaps you have a family member who maybe they're abundant, they ran a business, they're well known in their communities, things like that. And they're kind of the person you seek for advice. They're kind of like the one who glues the family together, that kind of figure. These people are also tend to be gurus in their domains, right? So you can think about like maybe if you were into really big into bodybuilding, you might go get Arnold Schwarzenegger to train you for a couple weeks if you could, if he was willing to train you and take you under his wing, things like that. That's like a guru mentality, and that's where you get to once you have reached that state where people seek you out for your counsel. Generally on this level, you're also going to be at peace, right? We spend so much of our life just chasing after things and pursuing, and now at this point you feel at peace with things. This again is not a common place to be. I wrote down here, this is a rare area to get to, this legacy area. Most people end up with regrets on the deathbed. You reach the legacy stage if you accomplish your purpose, and that means you're gonna have to do some scary stuff. You're gonna have to go through some tough areas, heartbreaks, big losses, all these kinds of things. But in the end, you reach legacy as well, as long as you're willing to accept the challenge. And it's a good mindset to think about, right? Because if you don't do this, then you're the guy on the bed, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I should have asked the girl out. I should have started the business I always wanted to do. I should have told my boss what was up, right? Like all those kinds of things. You don't want to be that guy. I'd rather be the legacy guy, but in order to do that, you have to be willing to accept the call and take on your purpose, okay? So to piece this all together, one thing I do want to say real quick, this is personally defined. All of this is personally defined. So like for me, part of my purpose right now is I want to give out content to you guys. I had to go through my own self-development journey, and I feel like there was a hole in the industry, I guess you could call it industry, and the content that was getting put out that I felt like I could fill. I wanted to have my own voice on this subject. It's been very inspiring to me, so I wanted to give that back to you guys. So creating all this content is part of my purpose, and then future business endeavors along with that I'm working on right now are also part of that. But for you, it might be something completely different, right? Like we'll use an example. Let's say you wanted to be a plumber, right? We'll just do something that's kind of like normal, right? So in the wandering stage, perhaps you're like 17 years old, you don't know what you're doing, you don't really want to go to college, and you learn like maybe you have a friend who's like dad's a plumber or something like that. You find the industry interesting, you like the idea of like, I could live in this town and build a really big business and like employ people in the community, and ultimately I could have this big legacy and this big business, and I like the fact that I can just go get the trade, start working right now. Maybe that's your attitude. More power to you. That's a great attitude, I think. I mean, plumbers are great people. In the slept-on stage, and again, I'm not a plumber, so if I'm getting this wrong and you're a plumber watching, my bad, but in the slept-on stage, perhaps you're an apprentice, right? Nobody really knows who you are. You're doing your thing, but it's kind of like you're not getting recognized for it, right? Yet you still have to learn, you still have to train, you have to discipline yourself and grow. In the recognized stage, perhaps it's you've launched this big business now. You're a plumber with your own company, Jack's Plumbing, whatever it is, right? You've got that going on. You're reaching heights. People are like, yeah, he's the best plumber in town. You got the biggest plumbing business in the area. You accomplish all those things you want to accomplish. And then your legacy perhaps is about passing that on to your kids, right? And you're like, you know what? You teach your son the craft. Your son takes over the business. You move more into the retirement. You're kind of like the sought after figure. Like your son maybe calls you and wants advice on like a business decision, things like that. And perhaps during this time, you also focused on like investing in properties. So you've got an abundance of wealth. You're taking care of family members when they need you, things like that. You're basically just an all around great guy because you did what you were supposed to do with your life. And the thing about this is it requires overcoming fear, right? You got to step out of the comfort zone. You got to do the things that are required to go on the mission to get your purpose, to pursue that, right? It's going to require overcoming fear, but the result is all positive, right? You're going to get beat up sometimes along the way, but that's just life, right? That you cannot avoid that. So you might as well go on the purpose that's going to fire you up in your life, okay? Some of you might be wondering, where would I put myself on here? I put myself in the slept on category. You guys know who I am, but on like a general rule, I'm not recognized as anything huge, right? In order to be recognized on YouTube, at least in this industry, this kind of space that I'm in, I'm gonna need at least 100,000 subscribers to be generally like recognized and be like, okay, maybe I'm doing something. I also need to build the whole business apparatus. Plus I got all these other areas I want to jump into, different ideas and different kind of businesses I want to try to do. So I'm still in the slept on stage because I'm still working on myself as well. I would hazard a guess, like I said earlier, most of you watching are probably in one of these two stages as well. Last thing I wanted to talk about, no age. There is no age requirement for any of these. I've got some older guys who do watch this channel, so I wanted to clarify this. You could be 50 in the wandering stage. That's like, I mean, look, we all go through different parts of life, and sometimes it can feel like you missed the boat, right? You missed your chance and it's too late. The world's passed you by. That's not true, because we all go through different things. Like, I mean, Donald Trump, right? He's transitioned through different careers. He was a real estate guy, then he went into TV, now he's president, right? That's like 3 different career choices, right? He could have sat there at 68, what was it, when he ran for president, and be like, well, gee, I didn't run for senator of New York when I was 40, so I guess my chance is missed. No, he just said, I'm going to be president, right? He said, went and did it. So if you're 50 in the wandering stage, just find your purpose, keep it moving. It's probably gonna be different than somebody at 20 who's horny and just, you know, I want to get on my purpose. I want to have a mansion in LA and live like Dan Bilzerian. You might be different than that, but that's okay. But the only one that's generally you're gonna find yourself older in life is the legacy one, because you just got to live a full life so you can put all that time in and create all the things you're here to create. But as a general rule, there is no age requirement for this. Now, guys, if you got something out of this video, I want you to give me a like so I can reach more guys through the algorithm. Hit the bell icon and subscribe button so you don't miss tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.